Hey folks, this is the second part of the first chapter in Excel. We're looking at page 30 right now, and we've done a little bit of this already. This is page 31, so we're going to do a little bit of formula, some real basic sorts of things. Be sure to look at those pictures with those green bubbles. Those things are going to give you a lot of information. I say that all the time. So calculating with formulas. So you don't need to be a math expert to be able to work with this particular chapter. A lot of this is just recipes. And in real life, um, even when you're building spreadsheets, you are going to be working with things most likely that are predefined. And so all I mean by that is you're going to get the information from somewhere, and those calculations are going to be pretty obvious for most of you. If you get into some sort of statistical analysis and things like that, things might get a little more tricky for you, but if you're doing that, you're probably going to have some math background anyway. So anyway, this is pretty simple: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. We're not even going to do a whole lot with exponentiation, and so why don't you just ignore that if that is confusing to you. And on page 33, they're talking about some different explanations for how the symbols are going to be working. So we don't use an X for multiplying, we use the asterisk symbol or the star. Some people call it the star, and that's in this area right here. So that's 3 plus 4 times 5. That's 3 plus 4 times 5. And so the parentheses are trying to indicate which things you do first. And that applies to the order of operations. So if you're not a math whiz, you can use parentheses to control the mathematics. So in other words, if we go back up here to this example here, you might not know whether or not you should multiply 5 times 4 and then add 3, or to add 3 plus 4 and then multiply that by 5. The parentheses allow you to know which thing to do first. I use parentheses a lot, and the reason why I do that is not because the order of operations is confusing, but because visually it provides you with some very, very specific visual cues for what happens first. So the parentheses can become very, very helpful. So just kind of keep that in mind as you move forward in this chapter, and you can begin to see how that actually works. Look at this figure 123 if that's helpful for you. The same numbers with the same symbols, except one has parentheses and the other one doesn't, and they get different results. So you can see that in the first two lines there. And then they do some other examples here so that you can begin to see how those things would work as well. So if you don't do them in the correct order, sometimes you get wildly different answers. Same numbers, same symbols, different answers. So understanding what you want is pretty important. And again, you control that by using parentheses. If you already understand order of operations and the parentheses stuff is confusing, ignore everything I just said and just note that you're going to see parentheses used in formulas pretty frequently. And so you're going to need to be able to untangle that in your mind. Okay, so I'm at the bottom of page 33, okay? And the spreadsheet that we're going to be working with is this game card, and it looks like this, okay? So we've got our customer order. We entered all that other information in there. There's the documentation sheet, okay? I'm not going to be flipping back and forth here beyond this particular page. So again, this is on page 33, bottom of page 33. So basically in step 2, it says click on cell H12 on the customer order worksheet to make it active and type charge as the column label. Okay, so we're going to go to H12. So that's H12, and I can confirm that I'm in the right spot by going up here into this upper left item here in the name box. And so if I just to the right of the QTY, I'm going to enter the word charge, if I can type, charge, and then it says to press the enter key so that you go down to the cell below it. And you could click down there as well. Typically, using the enter key will drop you down into the proper cell. In order to get into formula mode, we always type in the equal sign, and that turns this into a formula of some sort. They're spoon feeding us these formulas. So equals F13, no spaces, and then we're going to multiply that by G13. And so you can see those things are becoming color-coded to the left because those are the cells that we entered here as part of our formula. So we don't need any parentheses or anything like that here. And then once we've got that entered properly and the right cells are selected, if we press enter, you can see that the charge that shows up is 2 of the prices. So we're going to do a little bit more of this. So we're in cell H, well, actually, we're going to go back and inspect this one. So if we click on cell H13, we can see what the result is, but in the formula bar up here, you can also see that the formula now shows up. So, okay, so we're going to go down to cell H14. We're going to type the equal sign again. And this time, instead of typing, we're going to click on cell H14 right here. And when I click it, it automatically types it in there for me. I'm going to type in the multiplication symbol or the asterisk symbol, and then I'm going to click on cell G14. And when I do that, I can eliminate all that goofy typing stuff. And when I press enter, it does basically the same thing as it did up above, except this time it only multiplied it by 1. So 1 times 2455 is 2455. So flip over to page 35, and we want to click on cell H14, and we're going to copy that cell. And you can do it from up here, or you can use Control C, but once you've copied it, you'll see this vibrating border that shows up around it. And then we're going to select 3 cells. We're going to select all 3 of those things beneath it. So those are highlighted and they don't have the vibrating border around them. Okay, so I have 3 cells selected. And then I'm going to paste that in there. So if you notice, I copied and I pasted, but different things showed up in each one of those cells. And we'll look at that here in just a second. Okay, so let's click on cell H15, and if you look in the formula for cell H15, it shows as F15 times G15. Well, that's not what we had placed in cell H14. And if we look down at the next cell beneath that, H16, it changed those numbers as well for that cell. So even though we copied and pasted from row or cell H14, it actually altered each one of those to match the line that it was being pasted into. So Excel tries to be pretty smart about all this. So it's trying to do the same pattern for wherever you're placing the information. That way you don't have to do it one at a time. Okay, I don't think you need to become expert with any of that at this point, but if I uncover these formulas, what you'll see is that each one of them is kind of the same, but different depending upon which row we're looking at. So let me get back out of there. All right, so here's our spreadsheet at this point. So flip over to page 36. We're going to use AutoSum to enter the sum function. So let's go to row G18. Okay, so in G18, make sure the name box is set up properly, G18, and type the word subtotal. And then press the Tab key. Step 2 on page 37, they want us to press the AutoSum button arrow. So the AutoSum button arrow is this one up here. Okay, so not the sigma symbol, but the arrow just to the right of it. Make sure that you're in the correct cell down below before you do this. And then when we press the AutoSum and click on Sum, it enters in a whole bunch of stuff. Look at the picture on page 37. All of that should be the same as yours. And once you've verified that that image looks like the one in the book, or the image in the book looks like your spreadsheet, you can press enter. And you should come up with something like 198.57. And so that's the subtotal. Okay, so we're going to add some other things to this though, like taxes and stuff like that. So we want to click on cell G11 up here, and we're going to type in the word sales tax. And then press the Tab key and type in 5%. Okay, so 5% is going to be the sales tax fee. But now this time we're going to go into cell G19. So I'm on step 3 at the bottom of page 37. We're going to type the word tax, press the Tab key, and this time our formula is going to be equals H11 times H18. And so if you look at your colors on the cells, looks like it's going to take the one up above and multiply it by the one that we just created for the sales tax percentage. So if I type enter there, it's going to come up with something like 993. Next fee is going to be a handling fee, and type handling, press tab, and the handling fee is a fixed fee, and it's going to be $4.75. So this is looking a whole lot like a receipt at a store, basically. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to type in the word total into cell G21 in all caps. Press the Tab key, type equals SUM, and then a left parenthesis. And we're going to manually enter this in here, H18 colon H20. So we're just adding up the 3 lines that are just up above, and we're going to round out that formula by closing it with a right parenthesis. And once you do that, you should come up with the number 213.25. And that's going to be the sum of all of the fees listed up above. So check the image in your book on page 38 and make sure that things are looking real similar to what you have there. So if you flip over to page 40, we're gonna actually move things around a little bit to put some other information in here. So this is where we're going to need to highlight a range of cells and move them somewhere else in the worksheet. I'm going to save my work just real quick. So step 1 on page 40 says to select the range G18 through H21. So G18 through H21. And it's going to look a little bit like that. Okay. H21. So subtotal tax handling, and okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to look for the bottom border, and we're going to try to find this four-way arrow, and then once you've got that, and we're going to click and hold the mouse. We're going to click and hold the mouse button when we get the four-way arrow, and then we can move it down a little bit. And if you look at the screen tip right next to my cursor or my arrow, it says G19H22, and I'm going to let go of it, and that moved it down one space, which is kind of cool. Okay, so you don't have to, didn't have to copy and paste everything. You could just highlight and drag it. That four-way arrow just means that you're moving that whole object. Page 41, we're going to click cell A3. Okay, so there's cell A3, and step 2 says to press the Control key, the Shift key, and then find the End key on your keyboard. It's probably near your arrows, but when I use that Control Shift and End key, it highlights everything from where my first cell was selected all the way to the very last cell where there's stuff entered. So I've just highlighted it is all I've done. Now we want to cut it. Okay, so the scissors in your ribbon give you the cut option. You can see that there's a vibrating line around there. They want us to click on cell A9 now. And you can see that we've still got a vibrating line around there, but I've just highlighted cell A9. And step 5 says to paste it in there. So it took all of that information from what we had done, and it basically moved it all down. There's other ways you could have done that. You could have added rows, you could have done a lot of other different sorts of things, but this is a way that a lot of folks, they actually understand how this actually worked. So, but again, there's other ways to do it. Okay, so everything's moved down. We've created a few extra rows for ourselves. And they want us to click on cell A3. This is pretty typical too. So you start off, you want to add some stuff, you need to move things around a little bit. So in cell A3, we're going to type in the word order space ID. Going to press tab, and we're going to type in the order ID manually. So C10489. I'm going to press enter because I want to get down to that next line, and this time it's going to be shipping date is going to be the number there, and we're going to type the shipping date was 4/3/2017. Going to press the enter key because we want to go down a line. Whoop. Delivery is going to be cell A5, and tab, and type the word standard delivery. Press the enter key, flip your page to 42. The next line, A6, is going to be items ordered. Press the tab key. And this time we're going to enter a formula. So we're going to use the formula count, left parenthesis, and we're going to select the range G19. Okay, so G19 through G23. We'll go back up to our, and you can see that as I highlighted those things, they automatically type those words in there for me. Now I need to finish my formula, and the way I do that is to enter a right parenthesis. If I press enter, I can see that there's 5 different items that were ordered. So it's not counting the quantities, it's counting the number of cells, and there were 5 cells. So 5 items, 5 different items. Next one we're going to type after items ordered is total charge. Press the tab key and then type equals. And this time, instead of using actual formula, we're just going to click on cell H28, which has that total value there, So if I go back up and I look here, it says equals H28, and I can just press the enter key, and all it's doing is it's saying, okay, so whatever is in cell H28 is now going to show up here. And I can see that it's a formula and it wasn't typed in because I'm looking at the formula bar and it's telling me that. So it can get a little tricky the first time that you're using Excel because what you're seeing might not actually be what's inside the cell. And kind of training your eyes to look for the formula bar up here becomes part of the deal. There's some other tricks, and we'll show you those in just a little bit about how to see all your formulas at one time. Okay, so check the image on page 42, and that should match up with what you're seeing on your screen too. Even the left justifications in column B, etc. Okay, so page 43, we're going to click on row H21. And in row H21, so I just clicked on the number, left clicked on the number. And if I go to the Home tab, and there's an insert option that's up here as well. There's other ways to do this, okay? But we want to click on insert sheet rows, okay? And you can see that there's a new row that shows up there. So you could also just click on the button itself that says insert and it'll do the same thing. The other thing you could have done is gone down here, right clicked, chose insert, and it would have put a row in there as well. So lots of different ways to do it. But in this cell, or in this row, we want to type in the first cell. So click on the first cell one time, SU25. We'll tab. We're going to enter supplies, and then tab, and enter the Drebick brothers. And then this time it's going to be a miniature set, 12 items. And then for the players, it's going to be blank. And then for the price, it's going to be 23.25, or excuse me, 23.55. We're going to tab. The quantity is going to be 2. Okay? And now what we need to do is we need to fill in this formula because we don't have one. So if I simply copy and paste, everything just got changed. So before I had $213.25, but if I put that formula in my new row, the whole total is altered. And then if you come back up to the top, this total is actually refreshed as well. So the reason why we use the formulas is because it allows us to create these dynamic sorts of sheets that automatically update. So flip to page 44 and you can begin to see kind of what theirs is looking like. And I don't want to make this too small for you, but that's basically what you're seeing on page 44. That's the entire sheet on my end. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so bottom of page 44, we're going to delete a row. So they want us to click on row 23. So just click on the number and it highlights the whole thing. So you can come up to the cells group on the Home tab and you could click delete, or you could right click on the number 23 and choose delete. So whichever you prefer really does work the same. So that row is now gone. And the cells were shifted up too. So once you remove one of those rows or a cell or something like that, things tend to move around a bit. And that just takes a little bit of practice to know how things are going to behave. So if you delete the information within a cell, nothing happens. It's just you'll have a blank cell. If you delete the cell, it's going to ask you if you want to shift things up, to the right, to the left, what have you. If you delete a row, typically things are automatically going to be shifted upward. So I'm on page 46. They want us to select the range A17, select the range A17 through A28. And this time we want to insert a cell in here, okay? So all of these items, the reason why we pick 17 is because if you notice on the right-hand side, there's the sales tax. So we want that to shift to the right as well. So we want to insert cells. So if we click on the arrow next to insert, and we can click on the insert cells, this is what I was talking about. It's going to ask you what to do. We want to shift the cells to the right. So its default is what we want to do. So all those things get moved over just a tiny little bit and gives us some room to do some other stuff. So we're going to redo this guy, make it a little bit bigger, and then I'm going to reset all these. I'm going to highlight all the rows down there, get my split cursor between the middle of two of those rows, double click it just so I can see the work that I have. So the only one with a really long name is that Kings and Jacks. So what I'm doing is I'm going to create a new column for some information. And we're going to, so they had you do a bunch of resizing. So what they want us to do is select row 9 through 23 headings. I'm not even going to do this. Basically, what you're looking to do is to try to make this look so that you can read everything, just like I have. And the way that you can change the width of these columns is by highlighting the column and getting a split cursor like that. And you can begin to push and pull things around. And quite honestly, the way this looks right now, it's probably just fine. Okay, so page 48, we're going to use flash fill. This may or may not work properly for you. So if it doesn't work properly, you can just manually enter this information. So we're going to type in the word store ID. I'm going to press the enter key, and this time I'm going to type SG, and you can begin to see what's happening here on my screen. This is how it's supposed to work. Okay? And I'm going to finish typing in SG71-Kings, and now I don't have the flash fill. So the flash fill sometimes works and sometimes it doesn't. So this is picking up some other information here, and that's not exactly what we're looking for, but that's the flash fill. So it's trying to figure out what the pattern is so that it can automatically enter that stuff for you. So it doesn't really matter. It's a nice handy time saver, but if the information is wrong, then you definitely don't want to use it. So SG71-Kings, and then I'm going to press enter, and then I'm going to type FG, and you can see it's not working properly for me. Part of this has to do with various updates that Windows or Microsoft has done for Office. So I wouldn't get too crazy about trying to troubleshoot this or anything. It gives you the information in the book, in all of those images. You could just type that in there, or you can just watch what I'm going to do here. And now you can see it's like, okay, well, maybe it does have the pattern. SU25 miniature, trivia, solar. So it looks like it figured it out. Okay. And these are the suggestions. And I'm just going to type enter, and that's the flash fill. So you'd see I'm not really a big fan of flash fill because it's kind of finicky, but you get the idea. You can kind of see how that works. Okay, page 49. Add borders around worksheet cells. So we're going to select the range A3 through B7. A3 through B7, and step 2 says click the borders button arrow, not the rectangle, and this wants to be all borders. And so each one of those cells is going to have a border listed around it. Step 3 says select the non-adjacent range A9 through B16. Okay, so that's one of them. And the next part of that range is H17 through I17. So I'm going to press the Control key down and highlight those two cells as well. And these are all going to have borders as well. So now I can either click on the Foursquare square up here because it says all borders, or I can click the arrow and choose all borders. So if you're having a hard time picking both of those things at one time, you can easily do them in segments. So if there's a non-adjacent range of cells that are listed, you could do one of them first, and then you could do that second group separately. There are some occasions where you got to be able to get everything highlighted properly though. So for step 5, we're going to do a little bit more here. So A18 through I23. Whoops. My mouse is misbehaving. A18 through I23. So that's this list of items. And now I let go of the mouse. I'm going to press the Control key. And now I'm going to get cells H25 all the way down to the bottom. And we're going to do all borders on these as well. And you can just click off somewhere so you can actually see what you've got. We're going to go up. We're going to look at cell A1 with the customer order. And we're going to change that font size so it's a little bit larger. We're going to make it size 28 just so it shows up a little better. And we're going to save our workbook. And I'm going to zoom so I can kind of see how this looks. And that looks pretty good. So one of the things that they want you to do is down in the status bar here. So we've been looking at this in the normal view, okay, the normal layout. There's a page layout that's available for us here too. And the page layout, you can kind of see on page 51. This kind of shows, if you were to print this off, how this is going to look. So basically, it's going to go from left to right. It's going to print off on 2 pages. There's one more option down here. This is the page break preview. And this also gives you the same kind of kind of the same sort of look of that document in terms of what the printer is going to do to it. So this is based upon an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and as you can see, it's going to be kind of weird. So in the old days, we used to take tape or staples, and we would print this off, and we would staple or tape it together. and then we'd have this really unusual sized piece of paper, and we would pass that out. And people thought we were rock stars because we knew how to use a computer. But people would think you're foolish if you did that today. So don't do that. Let's go back to the normal view here. I'm going to zoom the other direction. I'm at the bottom of page 52. So we're going to change the orientation. So instead of the 8.5 being left to right, we're going to make the page be in landscape orientation. So if I go to page layout and then find orientation and make it landscape, and then go back to the page layout, and we'll just kind of see how this is going to play out. So I can get a little bit more of the information on there, but I still can't get that last column. And if I go to page, if I go to the page break preview, you can see that I'm going to have an extra column that's over there. So I kind of really don't want to do that. That'd be kind of silly. Some people wouldn't even know that there is a page 2 if you use duplex to print things. So on page 53, it says on the page layout tab in the scale to fit group, okay? So you can see here's the scale to fit. And for width, they give you automatic. Really what we want to do is we want to make this one page. And now everything, there's no hashed line, everything should fit on that one individual page, right? So there is no page 2. Everything's going to print nicely on page 1. One of the problems that sometimes people get into is and we're going to change this height to 1 page as well. One of the things that they do is they make the font size so small that they can't actually see what's on the page. And that's not very good either. So just kind of keep in mind somebody actually has to read this. So I'm going to go back to the normal layout. I'm going to choose File, and I'm going to choose Print. And this gives me another print preview. So you can see where those borders come in handy. The grid lines don't show up. Okay? These lines around each one of the cells shows up because we placed the border there. There are ways to get all of the grid lines to show up, even if you didn't manually add them. But I'm not going to really get into that right now. Typically, when you want borders to show up, you're going to put them in there. Okay, I have a couple more things that I want you to check out. At the bottom of page 55, I'm going to go back so I'm in this view. What I wanted you to know is that when I grade your work, well, the first thing that I do after I've looked at your work is I try to make sure that your formulas are set correctly. And the way I do that is in step 2 on page 55 at the very bottom, I press and hold the control key and then the tilde key. So the tilde key is just beneath the escape key at the upper left of most of your keyboards. And when I do that, it changes the view of the spreadsheet and shows me all of the things that are actually typed inside of those cells. So some of the cells, whatever was typed is exactly what's in there, but some of them have an equal sign, right? Look at this zip code too. Okay, what else? These charges that are over here, those show up as formulas as well. And so don't get too concerned if you do get into that mode, because if you just press and hold the control key and the tilde key again, everything goes back to the way it was. So if you need to see your formulas or see if you screwed something up or if the pattern's not right, that's how you're going to uncover it. Okay. I'm trying to see if there's anything else I want you to okay, there's a step on page at the bottom of page 56 and 57, I would recommend that you don't follow those steps. And let me just tell you what they're trying to do. They're trying to create a kind of a blank document that has all of this functionality that you could use for another purpose, for another order. Sometimes students, especially if you're new to this, you might accidentally delete everything you've got and you will have to start over. So just be really careful if you're following the instructions on page 56 and 57, and know that you should be saving a separate copy of that document and then deleting some cells out of one but not both. Okay, I think that's it. I'm just going to take one backed out look. That looks pretty good. I'm going to check my documentation sheet, and that looks good. And I'm going to save my work one last time, and we're all good. Okay, you can go ahead and submit that into the Dropbox for the module, and then don't forget, the review assignment is on page 58 and 59. It's 21 steps, very similar, just a little bit less typing. All right, thanks.